Hey, I'm John Bolger with Premier Guitar. We're at Soundcheck in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm with Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional.
Good to see you, my friend.
Man, thanks so much for letting us crash your rehearsal.
Oh, so happy to be here, man.
So you guys are going out on, you're touring all summer, and this is like the tune-up before you hit it, right?
We are. We should probably practice at some point.
Yeah. Right. Hey, we're going to talk about gear, of course.
Yeah.
But let's start with this very cool guitar.
Well, this is a beautiful guitar that Martin, who I'm endorsed by and am in love with, made for me, and it's a very unique guitar. They took, and I'll show you. I have one of the two guitars that they used to that they replicated to make this guitar.
So
they have with me. I'll have. So this is a double aught, and the body's a double aught, and it's measured off of my 1960 0018E.
Cool.
Which is, the E denotes the de-arming pickup like Kurt Cobain used in the Unplugged, but it's just a single one. And then they measured, so they measured that body. They didn't keep records, as I said, in those days of measurements, so they measured everything against these two guitars that I have to try to make one really fabulous one that I would love. So the body is measured off the 68 0018E, and the neck is measured and feels exactly like my 1970 018, which I've played just when I showed you. I've played it until it's just bare and beaten. They did a beautiful job with their traditional herringbone here, right? Yeah. And they did they matched. I thought this was their idea. I wanted the tortoiseshell pickguard. They matched the headstock to it. They're advised doing that, which I've only seen maybe in some 30s guitars, maybe 40s guitars. I'm sure they do it, but I think it's just a beautifully done little extra. And you won't be able to see it very well, but the tortoiseshell continues on both the bindings on the side. And then here's one special thing I was looking for, because this one, I play them. I always have one guitar open, one guitar open tuning, one guitar standard tuning. This today switch which is which on a daily basis, just to mess around. But today this happens to be right now an open D. Sounds like open D. It's got a lot of projection, a lot of low end, and I wanted a little more low end, so I had them do a 3-panel back, which they
I've
don't.
I've seen that in like a 3-2. Is it a 35?
Yeah, they only do on D models, or I think they. I'm pretty sure they only do it in D models. Yeah. So they had to like get permission from Chris Martin, not that Chris Martin, the other Chris Martin, in order to do it. And I just think it's so beautiful, and it really makes a huge difference in the tonality of the guitar. This is a brand new guitar, and it sounds like it's 20 years old, and I think this is why. So, as you were saying, the D35 previous, in their production models, is the one with the 3-panel back. And, they got the sign off from Chris Martin, the head of the company, to make this. And I think it's just, I wish, it's too bad it's on the back. It looks so beautiful, but it really does. Yeah. The purpose of it is amazing. And then the other thing they did is they have one guitar in their production model that I really like the finish of, called a 37, I believe it's the 37 Antique. That's the finish, right? And I asked them to do that with more of a matte, less sheen going on here, because I like a flatter look. And as this will age, the sunburst will come out even more. And then inside of it, I've got a Fishman Infinity, great pickup. I don't. You can choose a tone to have the tone and the volume knob. I don't care to have those, although I see why people would like them.
Sure,
but
you just set it and forget it.
That's my feeling on it. I have a little preamp that I would prefer to use on that, because it's less rife for error with the way I flail and all that stuff. And then the other piece that I use on all my guitars is these Paige capos, which sit very, very nice and securely with just a couple of twists and pretty much stay in tune everywhere. Yeah. I like that it lives in the guitar, and it's low profile, and I'm a thumb pick guy. I keep them up here.
Have you always been a thumb guy?
I've not always been a thumb guy, but I, at some point, really started focusing on Travis picking. And
it's such an amazing art form.
I love it. I'm obsessed with it, but I do a lot of flat picking too, bluegrass, and and guitar, obviously, rock guitars. Mainly,
when we came in, you were playing Blackberry Blossom. Yeah, that Tony Rice thing.
So him and Norman Blake are my two guitar gods.
Yeah. Good choice.
So I think so. But I find that when I palm a pick and then I get it back in there, sometimes I'm sweaty on stage. So at some point I started just saying, well, I'm going to just. It's not the most ideal thing to flat pick with a thumb pick, but I've learned to do it because I switch so often within one song between cross picking, strumming, and Travis picking. So. For me, it's what works. And then I have one that I just live here, and then I always keep one. Sorry about that microphone. I always keep one here for on stage. So if one goes, if I am that sweaty, I can just grab it off my shirt instead of a whole. If I keep these up here, as bands do, will keep you'll have your mic stand with all the picks on there. And I usually go to grab one off and knock them all off there, and they're all over the floor when I need them next. So this works pretty nicely for that. So so this is my my custom Martin 0018 modified to hell and back. So beautiful. Yeah.
So did you retire the '68? Does that now?
No way, man. No, I don't retire anything. Everything is not everything comes on every tour. I like to switch things out, but I'm of the thinking that these things were built with the purpose of being played. I never go real overboard with the price I'll play for a guitar. I don't want to be fearful of playing it.
Right.
And I also want to feel like I can hand any of my guitars to anybody who comes in the room and feel comfortable with them playing it, because they're going to put something in there that I might find later, And I don't want to be so precious about anything. So I'm a firm believer in guitars are meant to be played, pedals are meant to be used. If you buy something that's rare and it breaks or whatever, then it got used. It wasn't a museum artifact. But that's just my opinion.
Go down swinging.
That's the way I look at it. But I'm careful with my things, and I try to preserve them for the next owner. All you do is I know that this will be somebody else's guitar one day. So I don't know whose, but it's important that I take care of it as much as I can, but also that I get the most out of it while it's mine.
Although, the way you flail away, in 40 years, there may not be anything left.
It's funny that you should mention that. Let me show you this. So this is, I was explaining to you that my neck was measured off of this 1970 018. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is newly refinished. It was just about a Willie Nelson. It was just about a trigger. And I had no intention of messing with it, because this is my main girl. She's got all the songs. It's just a simple. This is a single 018, and at one point was one of the cheaper guitars they made, but it's old. It doesn't think it's a tree anymore.
Right.
It's got mojo, and I was leaving it alone. And then, but I was saying how great Martin is. They showed up one day to a show, and a couple of people, one of them being a real big guy, made you look like a little guy. And he says, "I'm here for your 70. Well, I need it. He goes, "No, well, I brought you this to use until we're finished with it." Well, what are you going to do to it? I know him full. I was like, well, we're going to lacquer it up. We're going to finish that. I'm like, well, I really don't want to do that. He's like, okay. Well, I'm taking it. So I was like, okay. So we had a laugh about it, and they were right, and it, what? It does look pretty badass now that they've,
it does.
But the whole thing is that my technique is actually really good. It's my excitement on stage that starts to happen. I do this thing where, as I'll play whatever I'm playing, either I'm picking this, or I'm whatever it is. It's pretty tight in there and strumming. I'm right over it. But then I'll start playing and getting excited, and I'll do things like this, and the next thing you know, I'm striking everywhere but the strings, and that's part of the life of a guitar.
Right.
It's got to be part of the show.
Hey, did it change the tone when they?
No, it really didn't. If it did, it was so imperceptible to me. They went real. They did it very tenderly. They didn't. They would have liked to have gone more, I think, if they had it their way, really protective. But
yeah, probably added years to the life, though. That's awesome.
And then, so what else can I tell you about this guitar? I mean, this is...
What gauge strings do you
I use 13s. I like a relatively heavy string. I don't like to bend. I'd rather do slides than bends. I mean, I will bend, but I don't know where that came from. I guess coming up listening to guys like Steve Earle and things like that, you heard, well, I guess the Jukes and stuff aren't bending and stuff, but you hear him by himself or whatever, there's not a lot of, or as we talked about, Norman Blake, there's bending, but not a whole lot of bending, they get the same effect by, little blue notes and sliding in and what do they call it, potatoes.
Right.
As opposed to, I will bend, but not as often as probably most players. And then what else do? I get these straps from Fender, who are really, really good to us. Only they're tan, and I like brown. So then I take a leather dye to them and I dye them so that they're more to my liking and a little more unique.
Yeah, I love that old school look.
Yeah, because this is like when I think of like Richie Valens or something like this is what he was probably playing. Something like this, tiny and thin. It's not more comfortable, but it's the way it ought to kind of feel. So that's kind of my acoustics, and then when we get to my pedal boards, I'll tell you what's special about all that. But I guess I should show you my electrics.
Yeah, let's go to Electric Land. You have equally cool electrics. Looks like.
Yeah, this is just what I've got here today. Maybe one day I'll have you by where I got everything, and give you a walk around. But I guess we start with this. So this is my my Mustang, and it's a '67. And what's interesting about this particular model is that they didn't make the they didn't match the headstock to the body until '68. But when I researched the serial number, I discovered it was a '67. So I called Fender. We talked about it, and they surmised that it was probably one of the few prototypes when they were coming up with the idea to match the headstock to the body. And I guess this is, they didn't, I mean, it looks green to me, I'm colorblind, but I think it's blue, because they only made, what do they make? They make orange, the racing models. I think it's like it's orange, white, and blue, I think. So this is faded strangely, and you can see what the sun has done to the striation here, or the age has done to the, or weather, or what have you. And the same goes for this pickguard. And this guitar's great. You know what I really like about this guitar is that it's very responsive. It's got without ever touching a pedal, I can have it on a pretty heavily distorted sound, play it very lightly, and it's just about as clean as can be. And actually not like so lightly that like I'm struggling. I'm just like, just kind of letting it happen, and it's just clean, and it's almost as clean as an acoustic. And then I'll just dig in, and it's just ferocious.
Oh, I wonder if there's, and it's all stock, right? This is
all stock except for this one got fixed the other day. This is just, I got a glitch out on, up until a couple of days ago, it was all stock.
That's great.
But I still, of course, I kept the pieces.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I wonder what pickups they use. I wonder how different those are than the Strat pickups at the time or anything like that.
Well, they were cheaper because this was the student model. So everything on here is like some cheaper version, right? So they're probably, I'm not a pickup scholar. That's something I will admit. But I have to imagine if the good stuff was going into the Strat, what makes it a student model is that everything's cheaper, right? So I have to imagine the pickups are probably not as, to my ear, they're incredible, but they're probably not as high end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, this is like, you know, 1968. They're not microphonic. They're original. They haven't had any. Oh, geez, I just jinxed the whole tour.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I don't keep the tremolo bar on there because I don't really ever genuinely use it. But it's I generally don't use it. But this is surprising for a student model. They made a pretty good, you know, dynamic vibrato, as they called it. And,
Right.
Yeah, so that's my.
What a great guitar.
Yeah, and it's a, you know, bolt-on neck, which is, you know, they would come when they like at these tellies, and I was, you know, read up on the telly customs, and people hated the bolt-on for a while. I love this bolt-on. I think it's just tremendous. I suppose if it didn't sound good, I would wish it was a neck through, but
Right.
it's great.
So what gauge strings do you use on this?
I use medium string. So what is that? It's the EJ17. What is it? EJ17s are
10-ish?
no, they've got to be like 11 or 12.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I bet those feel a little bit like your Martin.
That's the idea. Is like, you know, because I like the uniformity of feeling,
Right.
and there's a similarity in these. That's why I chose these four guitars. There's a similarity in their necks, and creature of habit. You know, my fingers just kind of go where they go out of memory, and it's better. It erases the potential for clam, reduces the potentials for clams. You know.
Sure. And in Dashboard, are you doing about half and half electric, half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say what percentage, but yeah, it's a good combination of both.
Sure.
And then I do a great thing where I say all the time, it's possible that my best electric guitar is my acoustic guitar through that AC-15 back there.
Oh, we've got to hear that.
Yeah, it sounds ferocious and awesome, and controlled, which is cool. So then I guess I don't know. What else can I say about this other than it's got this knot in here that makes it real flawed somehow.
Oh, that's great. On
I
the
think
rosewood.
you know that somebody didn't want that knot. I sure did. You know,
I wonder if that's Brazilian rosewood back in that era. It looks.
it probably
it
has to
is.
be for the era that it was. And you know you can't see so well, but you know the fretboard is a little convex, which is just neat and you know particularly friendly for running up and down the neck, I think. So
Great guitar.
beauty. So then I've got I got a deal on this at one point. I got these two SGs that are only they were made, you know, days apart. The serial numbers are very close, and you know, single P90. This is actually not SG. It's a Les Paul Jr.
Oh, cool.
For that, what is it, 61?
61.
And so they made it. Was it 1 year or 2 years where it was the same? It's obviously an SG, but they called it a Les Paul
I think it was
Jr.
I
and
think
Les Paul
61 was the
hated
year.
it. He hated
Yeah.
that idea. He didn't like the guitar. He didn't like his name on it. He didn't think it should be a junior. So it's rare that it, you know, you can see that it says Les Paul Jr. at the top,
Oh,
even
that's
though it's
great.
not clearly not what we know as a junior. The neck profile is incredibly thin. It is. I use it on songs like "Vindicated" and well, I would say like the generally heavier songs because this P90 is wild, and this thing it's so thin and just light. It just vibrates all the hell and back. And one thing I think it has going, both of mine have going, is the fact that they're pretty evenly weighted. As you know from SGs, they'll sort of be top heavy.
Yeah.
These are surprisingly level, for lack of a better word.
Do you have any tuning issues with that traditional just wraparound?
You know, I don't really have. It's hard for me to say. You know, like I'd say I probably don't. But I'm kind of one of those guys that I'll adjust my finger pressure
Right.
as I'm playing and not realize it. I think that's from growing up having really crummy instruments,
Right.
you know, really cheap instruments that you had to force to play be in tune somehow. So I may.
Yeah. You're compensating. You're doing the compensating that the saddle isn't doing.
Yeah, if it isn't,
yeah,
then I'm compensating. But I actually think it gets a bad rap, this design. But in the case of the ones I have, they're pretty decent.
Yeah,
I'm just real careful when I'm changing the strings to never let this come off because I don't want to change the height accidentally or anything like that. And I have to, I'm glad we're talking about this because last time I did tighten them, I shredded these out and I cut my hand on them every time I play it now. I got to make sure I tape these down so I just keep from bleeding on this tour.
So you said you have two of these.
I have two of these and they're only a couple days apart. It was a guy needing to get rid of some things and it, you know, I didn't want to or need to. I was looking for one. He made it worth my while to get two. And it's funny, like I can't decide which is better, but this one has a pick guard, so I take it out, which probably makes it worth actually more because it's got the original pick guard. But I don't know. Look at it.
Yeah,
it looks good. It's a great looking pick guard, so I take it out.
Yeah.
But it's tricky because I was, you know, for a long time I was endorsed by. I've been endorsed by Gibson. I am endorsed by Martin. Fender's been very generous with us. Almost everything I take out, though, is something I bought in a shop of my, you know, own discovery, with the exception of that beautiful Martin that they've made me and the one that they're making me now, which is amazing because it's another single lot, and they're using their Torrified wood program, which I think is just mind-bending. You know, when you think about that.
For those people at home. Can you explain the whole Torrified thing?
Well, as a guitar or any wooden instrument ages, it begins to sound better, and people wonder why. Well, it has to do with the fact that there's moisture in a guitar. It's good for the guitar to have moisture, but there's a happy medium where it's dried out enough that the way it will vibrate will have so much character. And it really becomes a guitar there. That's where I always joke about it. Still thinks it's a tree, because there's water in it, and there's some life in it, some actual life, you know, before it's committed itself to being a guitar. Well, from the way I understand it, and this is probably technically incorrect, but this is how I understand what they do with the Torrified wood: is they take the wood that they're using to build the guitar, because everything's saplings now. You know, there's not. You know, it was very easy to find a 100-year-old tree, in you know, up until probably the 70s, and then that was over.
Right.
So maybe you've got a 10-year-old tree or a 20-year-old tree, and they take it and they put it in this room that is almost entirely depleted of oxygen, as I understand it, and then they are able, because of that, to superheat the wood in the room without it being in danger of catching fire or shriveling or anything like that. And it dries out this wood. It thins out the wood, and it thusly will resonate as if it was a much older guitar.
Wow, it's going to be interesting to do a taste test between your new Torrified guitar and your ancient Martin.
I have yet to play one, but I have friends who've played them, and they've told me that it is. If your eyes are closed, you just can't tell the difference.
Oh, cool.
And that's another thing about Martin, is they want to be, they're going to find a way to make the best guitar. They already make the best guitars. They don't need to go do that, right? But ours could be better. You know, that's kind of how they look at it.
Yeah,
So,
and how cool that it's actually a family business.
I love that. And you know, they treat it like a family business. They treat us like family. They treat their ambassadors, that's what they call us, like family. You know, I get Christmas cards, I get calls to see how we're doing, I get congratulatory calls when we're going to hit the road. They never miss shows. The very guys that built this guitar came out to see it played the first time.
Oh, cool.
You know, it's it's very unusual.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, and they limit the number of people they endorse too, so that they can behave that way, have the energy to behave that way. So
yeah, that is a short list of
Yeah.
Martin endorsees.
Yeah.
Wow, well, fabulous guitars. And behind us is a stack of
yeah, we've got.
equally fabulous amps. Shall we jump into
Yeah,
amp
let's
land?
talk. Now, I can't tell you too much about AJ's setup over there, but I do know that they're Tyler amps, which everybody knows are these great handmade, I guess, replicas of Champs and Princetons and things from the early Fender days, and they do a great job. My setup is over here, and what I use is I use this Vox AC15. And this is my Bogner. It's my backup. It had been my main amp for years. It's just simple taste of the moment,
Sure.
and what combines with what. AJ's setup sounds a little bit better with me playing through this. When I play the Bogner, I play it through this Marshall, which I think is a 70. This is a decorative item, and then so I like a pretty simple setup.
So just a simple AC15 and then a backup.
Yep, I'm a kind of a 1 amp man. I like to keep it as simple as I can, consistent as I can, and then I like to be able to change. Instead of flipping through 100 amps, I would much rather do what I can through pedals or my hand,
Right.
To generate different texture.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're a man of few pedals.
Yeah, I have one set for my acoustic setup and one set for my electric setup. It's pretty simple. I start with this Mogami cable that I put this kill switch jack on, because I'm definitely one of those guys that forgets to mute the guitar before they plug it in.
Right.
And obviously this depresses. There's a small button here, and then you're engaged, so it won't make any noise or pop until it's plugged in. So that's the beginning of my chain. And then I go through. Here's some of what I've got on my pedal here. Okay, so I've got this. We use Voodoo Labs as our power station here, 9-volt regulated. So I guess I'll start with the boring stuff first. So we've got a AB switch, which also works a parallel at the same time.
Okay. One or the other or both.
Right, so I can have, and generally what I do is, and I'll explain why, is I generally do use both. I'll use, when I use, I'll have just acoustic, but when I go to electric, I still leave the acoustic line on. And there's a reason for that. Now, when we get to the other board, I'll explain what's happening there. This MXR micro amp is this great, very simple boost pedal that's super clean. You can choose the gain. I think they make really durable, incredible pedals.
Yeah.
As do TC. I'm a big fan of TC Electronic, TC Helicon, and this is the Polytune, although I've yet to figure out ever how to use the Polytune all at once, but that could just be, that's probably user error. And so then this is, so often what I'll do is my whole sound will be sans any boost, or it'll all be amp. Because, as I said, my guitar is very reactive, as is that AC15. But for songs I've vindicated, for the songs that are serious, these are electric guitar songs that are supposed to be big and beefy and mean, and rich, I should say. I use this Klon Centaur, and it's kind of a coveted pedal. I bought it at a time, I think, when it wasn't quite as coveted, and it's always been coveted, but it's now it's like, hide them in your studio. And
it's great to see one in the wild, because usually they are hidden away, in studios and things like that. It's great you're out playing it.
Well, maybe it ought to be, but like I've explained my theory that if I've got it, it's meant to be used, and
Yeah.
I'm careful with it. I try to care for it, but that's the most protection I think that it was meant to have, and when it was built,
Made
right?
to be stomped on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're called stomp boxes, for crying out loud. So this is the electric guitar side. Pretty simple. And then I'll turn this around so you can see my acoustic situation here. So I run another Voodoo Labs power under here. I'm a fan of these radial DIs. They're kind of indestructible.
Sure.
But I'm not a real big fan of DI'd acoustic guitar sounds in general. Fishman is one of my favorite companies that they've endorsed me for, I'm 15 years. Probably one of the best companies. If something goes wrong, they will send you. Like I've had stuff where they've sent out something to replace and say, send me the other thing back, and I won't be home again for 6 months, and I'll never get a call. We're irritated, we haven't seen it. I'll just send it when I get it back, and they'll say thanks. They get it. They that we're all out there working, and they have this incredible DI that they make called the Fishman Aura, and it's limited in its EQ settings. It's just a very simple low, mid, high. It's got an anti-feedback thing, which kind of just is it finds the feedback and notches it out.
Oh, great.
It's got its own tuner. I don't use the tuner, but that's mostly out of habit because I wish it's silly. This tuner works perfectly well. You get used to one and you can fine tune things, Yeah. If I spent more time with this, it's a perfectly great tuner. This in and of itself is 4 pedals. It's got this great compressor. It's really a high quality compressor, to be honest with you. And then it's got this situation here. This is the whole trick, right? It's not an amp simulator or a mic simulator, but there is some kind of algorithm where they're basically imbuing the thing with the sense of air and room and microphones. And there's these presets: Dreadnought, Orchestra, Concert, Jumbo, Nylon, 12-string, Bluegrass, and then user images. And then within each of those, there's 16 different choices.
Wow.
And what it does is those choices are, you're choosing the mic, the room, like famous rooms that they've gone in and recorded the sound of the space, right? And
That's great. So Royal Albert Hall, or whatever you want.
Right.
That's great.
And you can blend it. So if you turn it all the way to your left, it's just straight DI sound without any of this. Turn it all the way to the right, it's all that woody sound. Sounds like a microphone. Yeah. And if you find your sweet spot in between. And so the reason I have 2 though is we're just kind of sticklers for a just in case moment,
Right.
I have a heavy foot, so I've been. You don't step on a DI generally.
Yeah.
So it's entirely plausible that I would step on this, and that would be that. So it's good to have this extra piece of the puzzle here. One thing that's amazing with the user images, in addition to the ones that are supplied when you through your choices on their site or through their site, which I can plug in Martin 018 in a year and I'll get an approximation. Or anyone can send Fishman their guitar. They keep it for like a week, and they record. And you choose the mic.
Really?
And it's really your guitar that they're getting. I have no idea how they do this.
Wow, that's amazing.
But it's amazing. So then, as we go forward down the pedal board here, this is something it's on this board, but it's practically unused. I really use this for Twin Forks. I'm in 2 bands, and Twin Forks is a much smaller band, and generally, and we do have our own in-ear rig. It's about this big, there's no effects or anything like that. So I use this for delay or reverb on my in-ear mix for the vocals, so they sit a little bit more nicely, and then it sends out parallel. So, well, I guess it sends out multi-stereo parallel. So, but one is a dry, completely dry. That's what goes to front of house.
And this is a vocal?
This is a vocal pedal.
Okay.
It also is there's also like, this is a TC Helicon brand, but it's also like, you name the company known for, name any company known for amp simulation, and they have, that is also within this. I don't use it because I have amps and I have acoustic guitars, but, and it doesn't look like this. I put that wood grain on there because I think it's pretty. It's really just a white pedal. The reason that I continue to use, that this is continuing to be on this board is, even though it's going to go through all this chain and it'll go to the front of house with a completely just that mic sound, with nothing from here, is that I've just kind of grown used to those.
Sure.
Even though I have a monitor board on this tour because Dashboard's bigger than Twin Forks that has all these capabilities, but I figure I've already got it set up, so
yeah.
It's perfectly. And you know, there's also fun things you can do with your like you know, funny lower your voice an octave. I don't know when you'd use it, but it's fun to mess around with.
Sure.
And then the last bit I have is this Spark boost, which this is specific to the acoustic guitar. So if I play a solo during the acoustic, I'll press this boost. If I play a solo during the electric, I'll play that boost. And then I was going to say how they're correlated here is that the reason I run them in tandem when I have when I'm playing the electric and I'll still run it through all this is because here's another backup just in case there is that amp simulator in here, just in case. So if that goes and that goes, it's running into this. So I can have it just in case, you know, in the prepare for all eventualities, right?
Yeah,
and
belts and suspenders.
But I know that there's signal loss, so I've already figured out that I need to hit that boost in order to hit this hard enough, and so on and so forth. From that one, but it's pretty simple, but it's deep. There's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of pedals here. I mean, this is more than I have used ever, to be honest with you. But I know that this is still not that many pedals. It's essentially a DI and a distortion pedal, really. Tuner and a boost. Looks like more, but that's really all it is. Or all that you're going to hear out there. You know, I'm going to get this reverb in my ears, but you're not going to hear that. You'll hear you'll hear the reverb that's timed to the room, not timed to my ears. You know, you'll hear the whole thing is meant to be a good start for my front of house guy. So I figured that, you know, as long as I feel good and comfortable without going overboard. You know, I like delays, I like all that stuff, but you know, that's what AJ does. We don't need two guys. He's a wizard. I don't, you know, I'm very happy to just have some good tone and play. You know, like my style of play is, you know, I'll do like muted triplets, and then I can make the delay with my hand. Or I can't really make the delay, you know, but I can do the effect of a delay with my hand, for example. So I can't make it ring 100 times, which is, man, he's so good, and his pedals are all incredible. And yeah, that's probably another interview for you for another day. But yeah, that's the whole kit and caboodle. I got just this very simple setup, a few guitars, a pedal board that could fit on one thing, but I kind of like to have it spread out just so that I have the acoustic things on one side, the electric things on the other side. And,
good
and
to keep your two sides separate, because it really is, it's a different approach. So yeah, that's great.
And it's a little weird for me just because I'm a naturally left-handed. A teacher made me at a young age become right-handed, but my feet are, I'm still like, if I go to kick a ball or whatever, I'll kick with my left foot. So to use my right foot to hit the pedals is still like, wait, how do I do this? But I'm getting the hang of that.
That's great. Well, man, thank you so much for taking this break
This is great.
and showing us your very cool gear.
Yeah.
You know, best of luck on the tour. It sounds like it's going to be a big one.
It's going to be so awesome.
Great, man. Chris, thanks a million.
This is awesome. Thank you for chatting with me about gear. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're my alley.
This is our demographic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Till next time.
Don't forget to sign up for PG Perks, your all-access pass to exclusive gear giveaways and discounts on PremierGuitar.com.